Yeah, so today we're going to actually talk about being realistically optimistic. Okay. I'm going to send something back. Okay, so being realistically optimistic. So this is the second sermon in our series that said I entitled this "Living for God with a Tension-Free Life." Tension-filled life. Okay, living for God with a tension-filled life. Now, so let's review what we covered last time. So last Sunday, we talked about how we should actually relate with our past. How should we relate with our what? Our past. Okay, and then the answer that I gave you was, at least according to the Bible, is you remember and you forget the past. Right? There are things that you're supposed to remember, such as the good works of God in your life, and there are things that you're supposed to what? Supposed to forget. Okay? So today we're going to talk about how should we relate with our what? Future. Okay, that's why we're going to talk about being realistically what? Optimistic. Right? How should we relate with our future? So my response is going to be something like this: be optimistic, but realistic about the unknown one. Future. Right? Isn't that sounds sensible, right? Be optimistic, but what? Realistic. But realistic. Okay, about the unknown future. So let's look at this. The message today is probably good for young people. And I'm assuming it's good for old people too, right? But when we're talking about future, right, and you're like, you're in your old age, right? So future is not that long, okay? Compared to people who are 18 years old, when you say future, you're talking about long future here, right? but this is actually going to be good for all of us, right? So the message now, so let me look at the next slide here. One thing I learned from my father-in-law, my father-in-law was actually a retired U.S. Navy, and he has a lot of like wise sayings. Okay, when I was actually still dating Florence, one of the things he told me is this, and I can never forget this. He says, "Don't fly like a big bird if you are a small bird." Okay. Probably he thought I was too ambitious or something like that. So he has to say it. Okay. So he says, "Don't fly like a big bird if you are a small bird." Right? So now, one thing you have to understand is that there are natural and strict limitations, right, to what we can do in life. There are natural and strict what? Limits to what we can actually do in life. Always keep that in mind. When you do something in life, make sure that you understand the natural and strict limits of what you can do. By failing to understand them, you are setting yourself up for what? For failures. Right? If you actually aim so high that it's almost impossible for you to reach, you'll just be disappointed later on. It doesn't mean that you don't have to be optimistic. That's why we're going to talk about this today. You have to be optimistic, but at the same time, you have to be what? Realistic at the same time. So let's look at, so what do we know? What we know about the future? So what do we know about the future? One of the things we know about the future is this: it cannot be done. Right? The only thing I know about the future is that it cannot be what? It cannot be known. Right? I saw a sign. I think it was a joke, right? But I saw a sign in front of the church where it says, "Due to unforeseen circumstances, right, the seminar on prophecy will be canceled." Right? So even if you are very prophetic, right, still you're not going to know what's actually what? The future, right? Even fortune tellers don't even know the future either. Yeah, that's why they don't even know, what number they should actually use for the lottery. You guys follow me here, right? Yeah, because no one knows about what? About the future. So the only thing I know about the future is that it cannot be known. However, there are things that we know about that it's partly dependent on controllable factors. There are things that we can somehow what? Control. You know that the future can actually go to wherever you want it to go, in some sense. That's why what you need to do is you need to have the courage to change what it is that you can actually want to change. On the other hand, right, It is also partly dependent on uncontrollable factors. Again, these are facts, right? This is something that we all want. We all know there are things that we can control, and there are things that we can't want. We can control about the future. Now, so the future can actually fail to go wherever we want it to go. So what do? You need to learn how to accept, okay, what we cannot want, what we cannot change. So what do? You actually have the courage to change what it is that you can want. You can change, right? And then learn to accept the things that you cannot want. You cannot change. And I'm assuming many of us who are actually mature in age already, we somehow know this already. These are practical things that somehow, practical wisdom that we're all aware of already. Okay? Again, one thing we can know about the future is that we cannot know anything about it. Is that clear? And another thing that we know is that there are things that we can control, but there are also things that we cannot want. We cannot control. Okay? Now, so if you look at the Serenity Prayer, how many of you heard of the Serenity Prayer? This is initially attributed to Reinhold Niebuhr, a theologian in the early part of the 20th century. And look what it says. I like this prayer a lot. We even have this in the restaurant at home, right? Where it says, God, give me grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed. Right? Courage to change the things which should be what? Which should be changed. And the wisdom to distinguish one from the other. I think this is a very insightful prayer. Right? There are things that we can change, so we should have the courage to change them. Okay? But there are things that we cannot change, so we need to learn how to what? Accept the things that we cannot change. And one thing that the problem with us humans is sometimes we try to change the something that we cannot what? We cannot change. So that's why we get what?
Frustrated.
I hope you guys are following me.
Yes.
Okay. Now, so let's look at what Christians believe about the future. So what do we believe about the future? Okay. Now, I think we need to understand this in order for us to be optimistic. We need to understand about what Christians believe about the future. Now, one thing we know about the future is this. At least one thing we should believe as Christians is that God cares about our future and the future of His creation. That's one thing. God cares about what? Our future and the future of His what? Creation. I know it sounds like a cliche to even say that. Okay? But God cares about what? About us. When you say that with me, God cares about us. And we really believe that. Okay? Now, so let's look at Luke 12, 27 to 28. Look what it says. Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not clothed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, right? How much more will He clothe you of little faith?
Amen.
I hope you guys are following what the message of this particular passage, right? If God even bothers to take care of beautiful lilies, which are insignificant in relation to what? The grand scheme of things, then how much more God would take care of us? That's the point of this passage. Jesus is saying, if God will actually take care of this beautiful lilies, right? How much more you? Right? Now, God cares for you. You know that God knows that you are worried about the fact that you are approaching retirement. God knows that. Might make sense. Some of you are already retired and enjoying a good life. Okay. Right? But God knows that you are approaching retirement. God knows that you are ill. Some of us have illnesses. And God knows that you are ill. God knows that. God knows that you have financial hardships right now. Some of us are probably having financial hardships. God knows that. Okay? God knows that you are having problems with your spouse or your child. God knows that. Okay? God knows that you are having problems at your workplace. God knows that. God knows what is keeping you up at night. God knows what's keeping you up at night. Have faith. Be patient. Because it says God cares for what?
For us.
For you. I hope you guys are following me, right? Now, let's actually look at Romans, this passage from Romans 8, 18 to 25. It says, I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory about to be revealed to us. Okay? For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the children of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not of its own will, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to decay and will obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. Is there a next one for this one? Yeah. We know that the whole creation has been groaning in labor, pains until now. And not only the creation, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly while we wait for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. For in hope we were saved. Now hope that is seen is not hope. Okay? For who hopes for what is seen? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it what? Patiently. You want to web up okay. Now, you know that God does not just simply care for us, but God cares for what? His whole entire creation. God wants to redeem His creation. Again, we're trying to address here the question of, or at least, if we know that God cares for us, then somehow we can be optimistic about what?
The future.
Our future. Right? This is the foundation of that optimism. Because God cares for us. But God is not just someone who cares for us, but He cares about the entire what? Creation.
Yes.
You guys know that God wants to redeem whatever it is that He wants created. Now, God wants to unveil the culmination of history, where God's redemptive promises will find what? Fulfillment. What you'll get when such promises are fulfilled is incomparable to what you will actually get later on in life. Now, so the point is this, okay? The whole of creation is actually what? Groaning. Why? Because it's actually longing for what? For this redemption.
Yes.
Now, and God promises that He will actually what? Redeem us. So that tells us that God cares about our what? Our future. God cares for our future. God cares for the future of what? The whole entire creation. Now, what God will do, like what God has done, is important. Let me say that again. What God will do, right, like what God has done, is actually what? It's important to God. Now you guys are following me. Now, what God will do, so it's not just the past that is important to God, what He has done in the past, but what He will do what? In the future is also important to God. Now, another thing that I want to point out here is this. God made promises about the future, and the Bible affirms the faithfulness of God in fulfilling His promises. Okay? God made what? Promises about the future, and the Bible affirms the faithfulness of God in fulfilling His promises. Let's look at Philippians 1:6. I am confident of this, that the one who began a good work among you will bring it to completion by the day of what? By the day of Jesus. Can I read that again? I am confident of this, that the one who began a good work among you will bring it to completion by the day of what? The day of Jesus. Now, let's look at that particular passage here. You know, God who began a good work in you will actually what? Will finish it. Can you say that with me? God who began a good work in you will actually what? Finish it. Now, the God who has already shown you His faithfulness in the past will be faithful to you until the very end. If He was faithful to you in the past, then that means He will actually be faithful to you until what? Until the end. Now, one thing you need to keep in mind is this. when God began that good work in you, God already made a promise that God will complete it.
Amen.
If He started it, He will actually what?
Finish.
Complete it. Now, God is not like me. Okay, God is not like me. I started to do many things that I did not actually want to finish. I've written probably over 100 papers that I've never completed. Okay, I started, I have 10 pages, and then suddenly I just changed my mind. Okay, are you guys following me here? Right, so there are things that I actually started but I did not want to finish. By being good to you, right? But God always finishes what He wants.
Started.
What He started. Now, by being good to you, God invests His good work in you. He already made an investment in you. If He already started a good work in you, He will make sure that He will actually
Finish.
Again, I'm just trying to look for Bible verses here to actually somehow confirm to us that God somehow cares for us. He cares for us, that's why He made those kind of promises. I hope I'm making sense here.
Yeah.
Okay? Right now, so what about the third point here? The third point is this. God wants us to respond to His promises with hope for the future. Can you say that with me? Hope for what?
Future.
Hope for the future. Now, in Romans 8, 24 to 25, it says something like this. For in hope we were saved. Now hope that is seen is not hope.
Yes.
Hope that is seen is not what? It's not hope. Okay? For who hopes for what is seen? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with what?
Patience.
Patience. Now, say that word with me. Hope.
Hope.
Okay. Now, when you are hoping for something to happen, it means that you don't really know if that it will really happen in the future. You guys know that, right?
Yes.
If you're hoping for something to happen, you don't really know whether it will actually happen or not. That's why you're what? Hoping. Yeah, you don't say, I hope the sun will rise tomorrow. No, you don't say that. That's inappropriate for you to say it that way. You guys following me? You don't say you're hoping. You know it will happen, right? So you're not hoping for it. Right? But the things you're hoping for, you do not know whether that will actually what? Happen or not. When you are hoping for something to happen, you are taking a risk. Can you say that word with me? Risk, right? A risk in living a life as if it will happen in the future. When I'm hoping for something to happen because I know God will do it, right? What do? I take the risk. What is the risk? I'm trying to live my life as if it will actually
Happen.
It will really happen. Okay? Now, even though you don't really know that it will really happen even in the future, right? That's not a delusional way of living. Now, why is it not a delusional way of living? Because you know that God actually made a promise. He actually has shown you His His faithfulness. The Bible reveals to us that He somehow cares. Okay? Now, so, hoping that God will bring about something is inseparable from living as if that something is the case. If you're hoping that God will actually restore your relationship with another person, you have to live as if the relationship will be restored with that other person. If you are hoping that God will heal you from your illness, then you have to live as if that you will be healed from your illness.
Amen.
That's just how it works. I hope you guys are following what I'm pointing out here. Right? This is what it means to be optimistic. Okay? Right? Now, the very moment that you stop longing for something to happen means that you must have stopped hoping.
Yes.
When you stop longing for it, then that means you already stopped hoping. The moment that you stop longing for your healing, that means that you actually stop hoping for healing. The moment that you actually stop longing for divine intervention in your situation, that means that you must have stopped hoping. The moment you actually stop longing for your calling, that means you must have stopped hoping, right? That God will actually fulfill His calling in your life. right? The moment that you actually stop longing for your relationship to be restored, right? That means that you must have stopped what? Hoping that your relationship will be restored. I hope you guys are following me. The moment you stop longing for what you're dreaming of, that means that you must have stopped hoping. I hope I'm making sense here. You guys
Yes.
follow what I'm actually pointing out here, right? Now, so why should we be optimistic? So let me define optimism first. I got this from I paraphrase someone's definition here, and it says something like this. Optimism is an attitude of the mind that believes or hopes that the outcome of something is what?
Positive.
Favorable, or what?
Desirable.
Desirable. Now, when you believe or hope that God will heal you, right? When you believe and hope that God will provide for your needs, when you believe and hope that God will increase the profitability of your business, when you believe and or hope that God will help you finish your degree, when you believe and hope that God will help you find a job, when you believe and hope that God will restore your relationship with your spouse or with somebody else, now you are really optimistic.
Amen.
You guys follow what I'm pointing out. That's what optimism means. Okay. When you believe and hope that God will bless you, that means what? You're being what? Optimistic. Now, why should we be optimistic? One reason is this. When you are optimistic, we exhibit our confidence in what God can do.
Amen.
Are you guys following me?
Amen.
When we are what? Optimistic, then we exhibit our confidence in what God can what? Can do. Now, suppose I have a 2-year-old here and I ask the 2-year-old to actually jump and I'll catch him. And suppose he's not jumping. So that means he must not be what?
He don't trust
Do
you.
you guys follow me? The only thing I will know if the child is actually confident that I will actually catch him is that he actually
Jump.
I hope you guys are following. The only way you can actually show that you are actually have confidence in God is that if you actually what? You live a life that is what? With optimism. Okay? Now, let's look at Hebrews 13 here, 5b to verse 6. For he has said, I will never leave you or forsake you. If you really believe that, right? So we can say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can anyone what?
Do to me.
Do to me? What can anyone do to me? I hope that's good. Now, the optimism that the Bible encourages is the one that is confident in what a caring and faithful God can do. It's not about what you can do, but it's about what? What God can do. I'm not trying to discourage self-confidence. But you have to understand there are uncontrollable what? Factors in that determine what happens in the future. There are things that you cannot control. So what do? You put your confidence in what? In God. Your optimism means that you are confident that God will do what God promises that He will do.
Yes.
You cannot be optimistic about what God will do unless you show confidence that God will do it. Can you say that word with me? Confidence.
Confidence.
Without confidence, then that means you do not really believe, that you're not really being what? Optimistic. You must be confident in what God will actually want do for you. Okay? Now, exactly. Okay? Now, so what about the second point here? You know that optimism is good for your health. Right? It's not just good for you spiritually, but it's actually good for your what? For your health. I'm not an expert I'm not a medical doctor or anything like that, right? But I found this study from Harvard Medical School, and this is what they reported. Optimism is good for cardiac patients. Okay? I'm just going to report the main points. Okay? Optimism is good for our blood pressure. Okay? Optimism can protect us from developing heart disease. Optimism is good for our overall health. And lastly, optimism can boost our longevity. So that means optimism is not just good for us spiritually, but it's also good for what?
Physical.
For our health. Okay. Now we have some health experts here. I'm not the health expert here. Okay, but I'm assuming you can see why that seems commonsensical to think of it in that way. Okay. Now the other thing is this: optimism is a key to what? A successful life. Okay. Optimism is a key to what? Successful life. So here's what I found in a magazine called Psychology Today. Okay. It says optimism supports creative thinking and generation of new ideas. Optimism produces a tendency to act. Optimism supports persistence in the chosen course of action that is difficult. Optimism facilitates bouncing back after a failure.
Amen.
That's why, according to some studies, optimism is really good for entrepreneurs. You guys follow me now? Again, I'm not a business person myself, right? But we have some business people here. But you probably know what I'm actually talking about here. Optimism is actually good for what? It actually promotes a successful life. Now, so optimism is not just good spiritually. It's good for your health, but it's also good for what? For your pursuits in life. Okay. Now, so how can you be optimistic? Have a beer. Okay? Right? Right? This is from what we covered last time. Okay? How can you be optimistic? Have a beer. Right? You believe in what God can do. Right? Expect that God will do it. Right? And then you experience, what God is doing to you. Right? And then you remember what God wants. That's done. You guys following what I'm pointing out here? Right? How can you be optimistic? Have a beer. Right? Believe what God can do. Expect that God will actually what? Do it. And experience what God is actually what? Doing. And then remember what God what? Has done. Now you guys are following me. Right? Now, this is the only time you need to become optimistic. Right? So the more you believe, right, the more you expect, the more you experience, and the more you remember. And then the more you believe again. The more you expect, right? The more you experience. And then the more you what? The more you remember. And then the more you believe. You guys see the cycle here. Right? This is related to what we covered last time. Now, so why should we be realistic? Okay. Why should we be realistic? Because remember I said a while ago, don't just be optimistic, but you need to be what? Realistic. Okay? Being realistic is a recognition of undeniable what? Limitations. Why are you realistic? Because you know that there are limitations. Right? If I will be too optimistic and say, by next Sunday we will have 100 people in this room, that will not be realistic. You guys following me? Because it takes time to actually build what? The number of people in the church. I hope you guys are following me. Right? So being realistic is a recognition of what? Undeniable limitations. If I don't know how to swim and I will jump inside a swimming pool and say, I have faith that God will somehow make me survive. Right? No, I'm wrong, right? Because I'm just not being realistic. There are what? Undeniable what? Limitations. I just have to face that. Being realistic will save us from disillusionments, from failures that are bound to happen from the start. I hope you guys are following me. Being realistic will save us from what? Disillusionments. Now, a lot of people get disillusioned. Why? Because they actually they exaggerate whatever it is that they project in the future.
Yes.
And then when they don't meet it, then they just what? They just get disillusioned. Again, you guys following me, right? Being realistic will save us from what? Our propensities to delusion. I hope you guys are following. All of us have this propensity to what? Delusion. Okay. But if you're not realistic, that will actually what? That can ruin. I hope you guys are following me.
Yes.
Okay? Right? Can we look at the next slide here? Being realistic allows us to see that God possible. I know you'll say, but nothing is impossible with God. Yeah. Everything is a possibility for God. But you have to understand, when you actually look at some of the Bible verses, some of them are hyperboles. It doesn't really mean that when you actually command the mountain to move, that it will actually move. The fact that we haven't seen that happen in the past, right? You know that it's unrealistic for you to say, I will actually command that mountain to somehow move. Right now, move, move. It doesn't matter how much you actually say that. It will not what? It will not move. You have to understand what? The scope of what is possible. I hope I'm making sense here. You have to understand the scope of what is possible. But I want you to keep this in mind. But the extent of what is possible with God as part of the picture is much larger than the extent of what is possible without God as part of the picture. There's this limited scope of what is possible. But in a world with God, the scope of possibility is much larger. In a world, larger than the scope of possibility in a world without God. We believe that we live in a world with a God. So the scope of what is possible is actually supposed to be what?
Big.
Much larger. I hope you guys are following me. Right? Being realistic makes it easier for us to accept the realities of life.
Right.
Realities of life. I hope you guys are following me. It makes it easier for you to accept what? The realities of life. And then, being realistic prevents us from wallowing in our self-importance or what? Greatness. Or greatness. Sometimes we overestimate, right, who we are as a person. You guys follow me? Because we're not just being what? Realistic. Being realistic prevents us from wallowing in our what? Self-importance or greatness. Look at what it says in Romans 12:3. It says, for by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of yourself more highly than you ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has what? As a son. I think even the Bible somehow assumes that we need to become what? Realistic.
Yes.
About our expectations, about our plans. You guys following me? Now, I'm not asking you not to plan. You have to plan. Right? I'm not asking you to aim high. You have to aim high. Sometimes what you're aiming for, people will make fun of you. People will ridicule you for even what? For even aiming for it. Are you guys following me here? I remember when I first came here from the Philippines to the U.S. I wanted to attend college, right? And one of my family members approached me and he said, you just came from the Philippines, you don't have any money, no one will support you, and you even want to go to a private college or something like that. But again, I didn't allow them to what? To stop me from what? From dreaming. What did I do? I was just dreaming. I said, I want to go to that college. You guys following me? And I did. Okay? I remember, if you know something about me, I was actually a bad high school student. Okay, I didn't really think about anything except basketball and girls. Right? I go to church, right? But the only thing I think about is playing basketball and hanging out with my friends. That's the only thing I was thinking about. I was actually a C and D student. Honestly, I even almost failed visual arts. I almost even failed PE. The only reason why they passed me, right, is because I was the singer in the school. Okay, and then the principal was so embarrassed that I think it was like a little, I don't know what to say, but they just decided to pass me, right, because I do a lot at school, because I just sing every time they have a program. Okay, so that pretty much saved me. That's why during my high school graduation, my dad didn't even attend. Because my dad says, the whole time you're in high school, I was so embarrassed, right? Because you are almost failing, right? But I remember when I first got here, I was aiming high. You guys following me? I was aiming high. I told my family and my friends I'm going to Yale. And someone even looked at me and say, you're meaning Y-A-L-E? I said, yes! Right? I am going to Yale, right? And I did. Right? But do you guys see what I'm trying to point out? You have to aim high. Is that clear? But at the same time, you have to be what? Realistic. How am I making sense here? You have to be realistic. Because I knew that I can do it. I knew myself. You guys following here? And I knew God's calling for my life. That's why the extent of what is possible is actually what? Larger in a world with what?
With God.
I hope I'm making sense here. I'm not trying to discourage you from aiming high. You have to aim high.
You have to, yes.
Right? But at the same time, you have to be realistic.
Yes.
You guys following me? Okay? Right now, so how can you be realistic? Be honest to yourself. Amen? Be honest to yourself. Don't exaggerate your estimation of what is what?
Possible.
What is possible. And here's what I want you to actually remember. Be open to a much larger sense of reality from what? God's perspective. You know, what is real from God's perspective is much larger than what is real from our perspective. So what do? Just be open to what God will do to surprise you.
Amen.
Amen. And then again, from my father-in-law, don't fly like a big bird if you are what? If you are a small bird. Okay? Right? Now, in a nutshell, so here's in summary of what I wanted to say. Let reality define the scope of your optimism, while leaving some room for openness to the surprising words of God. Let me say that again. Let reality define the scope of what? Of your optimism, while leaving some room for openness to the surprising words of God. Words of God. Amen. And I think this is what's different between a Christian and not a Christian. A non-Christian might not be open to what? To the surprising words of God. But as a Christian, you have to be open to the open to the surprising words of what? Words of God. You know, there are times in your life that when you have that openness, somehow God will just what? Surprise you.
Amen.
You know, God will what?
Surprise you.
Surprise you. Now, so let's look at the next slide here. You know, a better way to live one's life is to be what? To be a realist and an optimist at the same time. And I think this is actually, in some sense, even when you look at Proverbs and some other wisdom literature, right, in the Bible, it actually tells you to be realistic and to be what? Optimistic. Now, so let's look at this. Suppose you're optimistic, but you're not realistic. What happens to you?
Delusional.
You become delusional.
Yes.
You guys follow me? You know, you jump from the top of the mountain thinking that you know God will help you fly. Right? You're too optimistic, but you're just not what?
Realistic.
Just not realistic. You guys follow me? What you have to do, become what? Delusional. Right? If you're pessimistic and you're a realist, right? You're too realistic, right? You become nihilistic. What happens is that you begin to think, oh, nothing has meaning. You guys have seen people who talk like that, they're too gloomy. Yeah. Okay, right? You guys following me? Everything is bad, everything is negative. They're too realistic, right? Steven Weinberg, a Nobel Prize winner, professor of physics at University of Texas, he actually said something like this. He said, the more I understand the universe, the more I realize it's pointless. I think he's too realistic and he's too what?
Pessimistic.
Too pessimistic. You guys follow what I'm actually pointing out here? Suppose you're a pessimist, but you're also somebody who's unrealistic. What happened to you? You're just incoherent. Okay, you are unrealistic, but at the same time you're like negative thinker. Right? Now, so the point I want to make is this: a sensible way of living is that you are what? Optimistic and at the same time realistic. That's a sensible way of living. That's why what I want to encourage you is you have to be optimistic, but at the same time you have to be what? Realistic about your expectations. I hope this is clear. Right? Now, so how to be a realistic optimist? How do you become a realistic optimist? You ask this question. Suppose you have a plan and you ask, is this possible in the world with a loving God?
Yes.
Is it what? Possible in the world with a loving God? If your answer is no, then probably it's what? Unrealistic. So no to what? No to optimistic. Don't be optimistic about that. Okay. You guys following? But if you say yes, then you can have a belief. Right? Believe, expect, experience, and then what? Remember. I hope you guys are following me. And then yes to what? Yes to optimism. That's the time you need to become optimistic. Right? So you ask yourself, is it possible in a world with a loving God that I will be healed from my illness? Yes. So what do? You believe, you expect, you experience, you remember. Yes to optimism. Right? Is it possible in a world with a loving God that God will provide for my needs, right? Suppose you have this big financial need. The answer will be what? Yes, because God cares for you. God is faithful. Right? So what do? You have a beer. You believe, you expect, you experience, you what? You remember. Yes to optimism. You guys following? You're planning to start a business, right? Do you ask yourself, is it possible in a world with a loving God? Yes. So what do? You believe, you expect, you experience, you remember. Okay? Is it possible in a world with a loving God that you will actually finish your education? Yes. Right. So what do? You believe, you expect, you experience, you remember. I hope you guys are following me here. Now, when Jean and I and then later on Brother Rainier, and other people join us with Symposia. I think I remember, I don't know if I told this to Jean, we wanted to start a church where people will somehow be sensible believers of Christ. Are you guys following? We will be what? Sensible believers of Christ. And I think this is one way that we can be what? Sensible. When we become optimistic, because we believe that God cares, we believe that God is faithful. But at the same time, we should be what?
Realistic.
Amen. Because I think many problems that we have with a lot of Christians today is that they're too optimistic, right? But they're not realistic at all. Are you guys following me? And then the problem with a lot of liberal Christians today is that they're too realistic, but they're actually not what? Not optimistic at all. Let's find a middle ground. Let's both be optimistic and what? Realistic at the same time. So what I wanted to encourage you today, right, is you need to become what?
Realistic
A realistic optimist.
Optimist.
Amen. Again, this is the kind of mental attitude that we should have as Christians. Some of us are struggling from some illness, or are suffering from some illness. Some of us are actually, wanting some relationship to be restored with other people. Some of us are actually financially having some financial difficulties. Some of us are having problems with our children. I heard from a lot of people that they have problems with their teenagers or something like that. Not from this church. I don't have a teenager, so I don't know. I don't know how it feels to have a teenager, but I'm assuming it's hard. Are you guys following? Some of you are probably, looking for a job, and you don't really know what to do, right? So what I'm going to ask you to do here today is to commit your life to being what? A realistic optimist. Why? Because there is a God who cares for you, and there is a God who is actually faithful. All of us are here because somehow in our lives we have experienced God's faithfulness. All of us are here because somehow in our lives we have experienced that God is a caring God. I'm assuming you will not stay in church if you never really have any kind of experience of God's provision. Right? But all of us have these experiences. We know the God whom we serve. We know the God whom we what? We serve. We know the God whom we serve. There is a reason for you to be optimistic about your life. There is a reason for you to be that. And I'm not just trying to do this in order to challenge or in order to cheer you up. I'm not doing that. And I hate doing that, right? If you know me, I'm not an encourager. Okay? Right? When you tell me about a problem, I don't really have a lot of solutions to your problem. one thing I know is that this God who was good to me in the past is the same God who will be good to me in the future. That's one thing I know. The God who was faithful to me in the past is the same God who will be faithful to me in the future. And that is the ground of our optimism. You know, one thing that I do not like is when we actually, when I hear preachers preaching about something that makes, faith somehow illusory, right? You know, it makes you, push you to come up with illusions for yourself. I don't want you to be a delusional believer. I want you to be a sensible one. Amen? Be a sensible believer in Christ. Amen?